Hockey Inside Out, presented to you by the Montreal Gazette.
Welcome to the HIO show. Stu Cowan here, joined by Chris Nyland, Jack Todd, and a special guest this week. We have Michael Farber from Sports Illustrated and TSN. We got our first look at 3-on-3 with the Canadiens, Michael, against Ottawa. You don't like it.
No, let me phrase it a different way. I hate it. Absolutely hate it. It is far more of a gimmick than the shootout is. It's not organic to the game. We did see 3-on-3 very briefly here, opening night against the Rangers, but since the Oilers forced rule changes in the 80s, we haven't had 3-on-3 in the game. Penalty shots are part of the game. The problem with penalty shots, of course, not enough of them. Shootouts, you only have 3 shooters. You should have 5. So that's where the problem is with shootouts. But I much prefer the shootout. Nothing I saw against the Ottawa Senators is going to change my mind. Of course, it was only 34 seconds.
3-on-3 or shootout, Chris?
3-on-3 reminds me of basketball as a kid down the schoolyard. It's wide open. I guess it can be exciting. It can end quick and all that, but I think the big thing, to me, it's another gimmick to score goals because this league is starving for goals.
Well, it's like no goals. I mean, Brendan Gallagher gets a goal called back on him.
Yeah.
Ottawa, and you're sort of wondering, are we going back to the toe in the crease?
It's definitely seems to be going that way, although nothing they're doing is the least bit consistent now. You look at all these replays, and you can't predict which way they're going to go. Last night I thought they were going to call it a goal. I thought it was completely borderline. You could have called it either way, but basically they're erring now on the side of the goalie. For a long time, we had toe in the grease, and then we had open season on goalies, and now it's God knows what.
Well, honestly, on that goal last night, you look at it, and by the fans' reaction, it should have been a goal.
Yeah.
But he does make contact with his head. Now, is that interference? It's interference. You can't make contact with the goalie. I agree with the call. Gallagher, again, I mean, he could have made it look like he was clubbing a baby seal. And the fandom would have said, no way.
Well, Gallagher in the room afterwards looked almost confused as he was saying, my job's to go make the goalie's job uncomfortable.
Well, on the subject of things I hate, it's incidental contact. It should be either a penalty or a goal. Like so many other things, the NHL wants it both ways. So if the foul or the contact rises to the level of a penalty, 2 minutes. Maybe you score power play goals. You're talking about a league star for goals, Chris? Here's one way. If it's not a penalty, then it is a goal. I think there's part of the solution.
You're saying, where's the interference call? It's waved off because of goalie interference, but it's not goalie interference. It makes no sense at all.
Now, the Canadiens have the best record in the NHL, but Jack, your buddy Don Cherry was saying they're not in the upper echelon of teams in the league.
No, and and the Leafs are. Don becomes, I think, more irrelevant with every passing season, and that kind of comment just shows. And I think it's partly, his lifelong prejudice against Montreal, but he can't stand that they're a team out there without fighters. Byron led the team in hits.
That's right, he had 5 hits.
Against Ottawa, and this is the kind of team they are, and they're blowing the wheels off teams, and Don doesn't like it, so.
The odds makers, Michael, have made the Canadiens, they were 18-1 to start the season, now they're at 9-1. Anything?
No, this is a good team, and it's a playoff team, and we'll see what it looks like in April. And there are other good teams in the league. And the Blackhawks, for example, are still a team that I would measure myself against. But to say that it's not an upper echelon team, what echelon are they in?
Well, Chris, they rank second in offense, the Habs, third in defense, fourth on the power play, fourth on the penalty kill. I mean, Therrien has to get some.
Sounds like a lower echelon team to me. But he does. Again, you look at this team from last year to this year, the personnel changes made, the guys moving to different lines, the fourth line, Desharnais going down to the third. I haven't seen, since I've been back here, this team move the puck and skate like they are now. It's incredible. The puck movement, the passing is crisp, it's tape to tape. There's a lot of good things about this hockey team. Now you can question, are they a playoff team? Are they built for the playoffs? Because they're not big, heavy team like out west. But listen, right now, they are one of the top teams in the league.
And yet, people are getting on Therrien for his choice of players in the 3-on-3.
Well, PK Subban wasn't
Who
on the
could
ice.
that be?
PK Subban wasn't on the ice for the 3-on-3, and you have to sort of wonder about that, Jack.
Yeah, as soon as I looked, I said, Petrie? Like, you know, and there wasn't, it's not like PK just came off the ice because they have a good break between the end of regulation and the overtime. I couldn't figure out why Petrie was out there. I wasn't sure why Pacioretty was out there, and then it was in the net. That's all I had time to see.
Well, Patre is more of a shooter. You wonder if his game really...
Yeah, does it translate into 3-on-3? Listen, you know, we can, and the coach, I know he hates to be second guessed, but I would have loved to see Galchenyuk, Deane, Subban out there, guys that are quick, they're fast, they're good with the puck, they're playmakers, and they can put the puck in the net. And I just, I think it was, a bad choice of 3, but again, we talk about gimmicks. I still think there's nothing wrong with tying a game. You know, they have to end it somehow, but I like the tie. If you don't play well enough to win and you each get a goal, then, game over. You get a point each.
Well, the NHL, you get a point for losing. The CFL, you get a point for missing a field goal. It seems to be the Canadian sports reward failure, Michael.
Well, if you'd gone back to the beginning and eliminated the loser point and put more emphasis on the shootout and made teams really get good, okay, we have a win or a loss based on this. Plus, you would have had standings that you wouldn't need a decoder ring to figure out. You ever look at the NHL standings? I mean, who can figure that out? I mean, it's our
I'm not
business
sure
to
about
figure
that
out.
one column. I don't know what that one column
I
there
know,
means. I don't know.
it's absurd.
R-O-W. R-O.
Yeah,
What the?
what is wrong with wins and losses? And if you'd gone back and put the shootout in the way that it should have been initially and said, everybody, hey, this is part of the game, what drama would that have been if your win or loss is dependent on the shootout rather than the consolation prize?
ROW is really our win.
On that note, we'll take a short break and we'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody. Paul Byron, Jack, all 5'7" and about 150 pounds of him, led the Canadiens in hits against Ottawa with 5. You wrote a column just about how the changing face of the NHL and how these guys can now play in the league.
Yeah, you have two things going on. One is they're playing in the league, and the other is that you have a team here going without a designated enforcer for the first time I can remember, and especially with Cassian apparently not part of this team. If Beaulieu is your designated fighter, that's, it's a real change. And Byron, I mean, one effect he's had in this town is people are becoming poetry literate because they keep quoting Lord Byron on Twitter every time he scores a goal, and people are going, who that? I think he used to play left wing for, But no, it's wonderful to watch. I love this kind of hockey. This is what got me loving hockey 40 years ago, and I hope he's here for a long time.
What I had heard about Byron is great wheels, and we've seen that, but he had bad hands. I haven't noticed. No. His hands look okay to me.
He had good hands in junior. I know Benoit Gru coached him in junior. I was talking with him. He said he weighed 135 pounds the first year he played in Gatineau and still put up the points. The Galchenyuk and Eller seem to be the two guys in the doghouse or going towards the doghouse. What can you do to get these guys going? Do you maybe put Byron with them?
I don't think that's the answer. Again, I don't know what the answer is, to be honest with you. When you look at these two, you put Semin there. How do you break up the other lines? Justify breaking up the other lines, and just to placate these guys. I think they have to get their game going themselves. If you put Semin back there, listen. I saw these guys against Boston. It was second, third game of the season in Boston. They were on the best lines on the ice. And then I don't know where it all went. Obviously, Semin is not a go-getter. You see that. He's kind of lax out there. But again, I don't know. It just, hockey sense-wise, there might be some, that line might be lacking a little bit.
I know you said in your radio show you think Stéphane Richer could still skate faster than Alex Semin.
He could. If they did 2 laps, I'm sure Richer could beat him.
Your take on Semin, Michael?
Well, he hasn't fit in thus far. It doesn't mean he won't. I saw him mostly as a power play guy anyway, but didn't seem to function very well on the power play. Didn't cost Montreal a whole lot. What, $1 million? Mm-hmm. And that's
making less than Torrey Mitchell.
Right. So it wasn't a big risk. But the risk is if he infects the team. If this guy is basically malware on your computer that if somehow he gets into the dressing room and his impact rubs off, right? You got to isolate it. And so at some point, I'm sure he'll be back in the lineup. I'm not terribly worried about the right winger on that line because hockey's become a two-man game anyway, and you should find a complementary piece. But it's up, I agree with Chris, for Galchenyuk and Eller to figure it out themselves.
You wonder if Simon should maybe be watching defenseman Markov, who at 36 years old is leading the Canadiens in points with 13 points, Jack.
You know what would be a really sweet story out of this season is for Markov to win a Norris Trophy. You know, this guy has been through everything. He's been written off here so many times. He's made so much money for other players, from Brisebois to Komisarek and so forth. I would love to see that, and he's playing well enough to be in contention.
Yeah, now, Dale Weiss, 7 goals in 14 games, on pace for 41 goals, I guess, if my math
Weiss
is
is the word.
Weiss is
You know,
Gretzky?
Listen, I couldn't be more happy for a guy who, you know, he comes in the league, he got to run around in Vancouver a little bit. He came in here, forgot his game a little bit. Michelle put him upstairs. He got his attention. He scored some huge goals in the playoffs. He worked his butt off. The guys love him. And here he is now, 7 goals. Last year he had 10 the whole year. I'm so happy for him. I don't know what they're going to do come contract time.
Yeah, well, and he's in his contract year.
Well, he's on a pace for 41 goals. You know, at your current pace, Stu, you will live forever. Okay, we're all going to live forever. I mean, the Dutch Wayne Gretzky, I mean, he has a double number, but that's about it. And 7 goals, but, you know, we're not talking about the greatest hands in the world. I mean, the goal Montreal scored against Ottawa, Desharnais makes a great play against the boards. Puck comes over to Markov, terrific pass to Galchenyuk. Galchenyuk shoots it across the crease. And then basically Weiss wrestles that shot into submission.
Way to go.
And scores. So, you know, we're not talking about Mr. Slick, but you go back to why couldn't he play in Vancouver? And I think the answer is John Tortorella. John Tortorella just decides on people, got no time for this guy. He's available. I mean, this is one of the best moves that Marc Bergevin has made.
If you go by goals alone, he should be making 7 times what Sidney Crosby's making.
Yeah, on a pace.
I wonder if Tortorella would take Weiss in Columbus right now.
I think he'd take
but I think it
Red
says a
Light
lot
Mexico, probably.
He was saying after the game, Weiss was saying after the game that it's the first time really in Montreal he's played with 2 really good players. And I think it says a lot about Davy Desharnais, too. I mean, the guy seems to have eyes in the back of his head at times, and he finds guys for their opportunities.
Yeah, I think he's first time he's played with 2 really good players. What's that say about the guys he played with? Like, but yeah, you know, it does make a difference who you play with. And look at Desharnais in the middle there is insulated too. He got 2 guys with size, 2 guys again in Fleischmann, a lot of experience there. The guy's been around the block. He knows how to play, and it's a great line. They work well together.
Now, Mike Condon, he's looked pretty solid. Have you seen enough, Jack, to think that he's a legitimate NHL
I think
goalie?
so. He seems very steady and very calm, which is probably the first 2 things you have to be. The fact that he's so much bigger than Tokarski, you know, he's not as heavy as Price, but he's as tall. He challenges people. I like the way he moves. He moves very quick on his feet. I think they got their guy.
Steady and calm. Sounds like another Boston guy.
That's 2 words I never applied to you yet.
But I wonder also how much Stefan Waite plays into this, because it seems, you know, what he's done with Carey Price, and you wonder if it's...
Well, clearly Waite's an elite goalie coach. Upper echelon, as Don Cherry might call it, an upper echelon goalie coach. Tokarski last year was one of 3 goalies in the NHL who played regularly or enough games who was under 6 feet tall. You want larger goalies, maybe small players like Byron, bigger goalies now. And you know, he gives them a chance to win. And that game against Ottawa was the first time he hadn't had goal support. He'd been getting more than 5 goals a game. So you wanted to see him in a close game, and he played very well.
Yeah, he got that good glove. He got the flashy glove. He is steady. And you know what, just to your point about Stefan Waite, I think about him coaching Condon. I'm sure he doesn't coach him a whole lot different than Carey Price, where Tokarski, he had to coach him a little different. So there's a lot of positives there with the goaltender.
All right, well, that's it for this week's show. We'll see you all again next week on HIO.